The story of Star Wars is generally a tale of good versus evil, filled with characters that solidify their stance in the matter through the actions they take on their respective journeys. It's through these actions that these characters transform from just everyday people into legends. This begs the question, which character is the best? Many may give one or various answers. I believe there are quite a few. So my goal in this series is to intensely analyze the characters I believe fit this mold, and make a case for them as the greatest Star Wars character of all time. The character I want to look at today is Luke Skywalker. Luke is undoubtedly one of the most iconic characters in Star Wars as the main protagonist of the original trilogy. In this multi-part analysis, I want to go over how Luke's ideals, philosophy, and journey as a character molds the themes of Star Wars as a whole, and how he transforms from the simple farm boy to Jedi Knight and legendary hero of the Rebellion. Luke is first introduced to audiences in Episode 4, receiving the honor of being the film's titular character. The moniker of A New Hope highlights the very essence of Luke as a symbol of inspiration for the characters around him and the audience alike. We gravitate towards Luke easily as he's established as the classic hero, or the hero of a thousand faces, a tale as old as time of an ordinary person who will find themselves set on a journey of adventure, greater purpose, and self-discovery. Episode 4 is regarded by many to be one of the great examples of a hero's tale, which is fitting as much of the structure of the story was directly inspired by the works of mythologist Joseph Campbell. Campbell believes there are two types of heroes, where one type sets out looking for adventure, while the other is simply thrown into a journey without looking for it in the first place. Luke and Han respectively embody these categories, and which in turn give them paralleling journeys. Check out the Han video for his perspective, whereas of course here, we'll be focusing on Luke's. Campbell is also famous for coining the term the Monomyth, or what we commonly refer to as the hero's journey. It examines the stages of the hero who goes on an adventure, faces a crisis and wins, and then returns victorious. In this video, I'll be taking a deep dive into this, as Episode 4 heavily follows this mythical story structure. I'll also be using screenwriter Christopher Vogler's simplified interpretation that divides this journey into 12 stages, rather than Campbell's original 17. Every hero's journey begins in the ordinary world. It's here that we see the hero's normal life at the start of the story, before the adventure begins. In the case of Luke, his ordinary world is that of the desert planet of Tatooine. His home planet is a representation of how Luke feels about his circumstance. Being a desert, his environment is dry, barren, and lifeless, with nothing on the horizon, an idea that's encapsulated well by 3PO upon his arrival.
What a desolate place this is.
Not only does the planet establish our understanding of the hero's situation, but through color, Luke's clothes are visually used to further convey him as the quintessential fantasy hero, as the purely good hero typically wears white, and the evil villain, black. His simple, rugged clothing also emphasizes his humble beginnings, just like the desert planet that he lives on. And it's in the droid's arrival to this very planet that Luke's story begins, as with his first interactions that he has with his uncle before purchasing R2 and 3PO, we get a glimpse into where his current state of mind is.
Take these two over to the garage, will you? I want them cleaned up before dinner.
But I was going into Toshi Station to pick up some power converters.
You can waste time with your friends when your chores are done. Now, come on, get to it.
All right, come on.
Luke is shown to bear the responsibilities that his uncle has bestowed upon him, and more importantly, it's established that the desire for these farm boy responsibilities are not reciprocated by Luke, as he would rather be elsewhere. A reminder of his youth, naivety, and aspiration for excitement, generating a set point for where his character is and how far he will need to go to become a hero.
Excuse me, sir, but that R2 unit is in prime condition. A real bargain.
Uncle Owen?
Yeah?
What about that one?
With a bit of fate on his side, Luke then displays one of his better qualities, his ability to trust others. This trust is representative of Luke making an active choice to see the good in others first. Not only would it afford him the opportunity to be called on for adventure in the short term with R2, but it would also be a trait that would remain consistent and important to his character as the story would progress. Once Luke takes the droids back to be cleaned, he begins to more clearly voice his thoughts on the ordinary world and his inability to escape it.
Just isn't fair. Oh, Biggs is right. I'm never gonna get out of here.
This sets up the idea that Luke yearns for something more than what he has. He feels trapped in the situation that he's in and wishes for a life of adventure as opposed to the monotonous lifestyle that he's grown accustomed to.
Is there anything I might do to help?
Oh, not unless you can alter time, speed up the harvest, or teleport me off this rock.
Again, Luke's frustrations are shown in his reply, as all of his hyperbolic or exaggerated responses share the common theme of getting him off-world sooner rather than later. At the end of the day, this is a decision that only he can make, but his strong sense of loyalty and duty to his family are what keep him there. Also, the fact that he refers to Tatooine as a rock here highlights the fact that he doesn't think much of the planet itself, not viewing it as a home, rather a prison of sorts.
As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure which planet I'm on.
Well, if there's a bright center to the universe, you're on the planet that it's farthest from.
While this is accurate in somewhat of a literal sense, as Tatooine is located in the outer rim of the galaxy, metaphorically, Luke really means that it feels like he's in the middle of nowhere, essentially being from a small town that has nothing to give or offer him in terms of a future. So of course, when he gets a hint of R2 and 3PO's involvement with the rebellion, Luke can't contain his excitement, as through them, it's the closest he's ever been to the adventure he dreams of.
You're a lot of carbon scoring here. Looks like you boys have seen a lot of action.
With all we've been through, sometimes I'm amazed we're in as good condition as we are. What with the rebellion and all.
You know of the rebellion against the Empire?
That's how we came to be in your service, if you take my meaning, sir.
For the first time, Luke lights up, but unfortunately, just as quickly as his excitement arrives, it dies.
Have you been in many battles?
Several, I think. Actually, there's not much to tell. I'm not much more than an interpreter, and not very good at telling stories. Well, not at making them interesting anyway.
Although, Luke's desperation for any taste of fun would come sooner than he expected as he enters the second stage, formerly known as the Call to Adventure. It's here that the hero is faced with an event, conflict, problem, or challenge that makes them start their adventure. For Luke, this comes in the form of R2 and the message from the princess from the extraordinary world, with a mission to find the almost mythical Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Well, my little friend, got something jammed in here real good. Were you on a Star Cruiser?
Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
What's this?
What is what? He asked you a question. What is that?
This small clip of the message is enough to pique Luke's interest, as his curiosity makes him want to know more about this stranger.
Who is she? She's beautiful.
I'm afraid I'm not quite sure,
Help
sir.
me, Obi-Wan Kenobi.
I think she was a passenger on our last voyage, a person of some importance, as I believe. Our captain was attached
Is there any
to...
more to this recording?
As the woman seems to be in danger and calls for help, Luke's sense of duty and doing the right thing makes him want to help in any way that he can, akin to a knight rescuing the princess and saving the day.
He says that he is the property of Obi-Wan Kenobi, a resident of these parts, and it's a private message for him.
Obi-Wan Kenobi. I wonder if he means old Ben Kenobi.
I beg your pardon, sir, but do you know what he's talking about?
Well, I don't know anyone named Obi-Wan, but old Ben lives out beyond the Dune Sea. He's kind of a strange old hermit.
Luke begins to put the pieces together of what this call to adventure would entail. He may not realize it yet, but this simple message would have a ripple effect on the galaxy as a whole.
Sounds like she's in trouble. I better play back the whole thing.
This scene also helps establish Luke's philosophy, as when it would be later challenged, we already know how he feels, as Luke is characterized as the straight arrow with good values and a proper moral compass.
He suggests that if you remove the bolt, he might be able to play back the entire recording.
Oh, yeah, well, I guess you're too small to run away on me if I take this off.
Unfortunately, one of Luke's strengths is also a weakness, as his trusting nature backfires on him, with R2 tricking him into removing the bolt with no intention of complying and playing back the message.
Wait a minute, where'd she go? Bring her back. Play back the entire message.
What message? The one you've just been playing. The one you're carrying inside your rusty innards.
Also, Luke falls into the trap of placing judgment and underestimating others, in particular, the little guy, as R2's size makes others quick to label him as a non-threat or as someone that's incapable of greatness. This, of course, being a great mistake on Luke's part, as R2 would prove time and time again the idea that anyone can do anything they put their mind towards, as R2 would easily escape that night and nearly make it to Obi-Wan on his own. Not to mention the countless times he would go on to single-handedly save the team from destruction, but I digress. This flaw of Luke's would be one that he would carry on into Empire Strikes Back, as he would underestimate Yoda, and wouldn't have learned his lesson until Return of the Jedi when he would encounter the Ewoks. But until then, R2 would continue to receive shade from 3PO.
No, I don't think he likes you at all. No, I don't like you either.
Ironically enough, R2 is a reflection of Luke in the grand scheme of things, as both are the little guy in their own regard, rising up to the occasion despite any limitation they may have, being the seemingly insignificant individuals that have a significant impact on the story. R2 and Luke both want to do the right thing, only R2 has already chosen to set out on his adventure, and Luke has yet to accept it, being the heroes that choose their path and set out looking for adventure, with their respective counterparts in 3PO and Han simply being thrown into the action. But before simply embarking on adventure, Luke addresses his concerns with his family.
You know, I think that R2 unit we bought might have been stolen.
What makes you think that?
No, I stumbled across a recording while I was cleaning him. He says he belongs to someone called Obi-Wan Kenobi. I thought he might have meant old Ben. Do you know what he's talking about?
This scene explores the dynamic between Luke and his uncle Owen, where Luke is very open, trying to solve the mystery of the droids to do the right thing. Owen is very reserved and secretive, not wanting for the topic to go on any further than it already has. Of course, only having the opposite effect and raising his nephew's suspicion and curiosity on the matter.
I wonder if he's related to Ben.
That wizard's just a crazy old man.
Owen quickly tries to denounce Obi-Wan and dismiss him as a person that simply doesn't deserve time in their conversations. This being the first clue for Luke that there's more that his uncle knows than what he's telling him.
Tomorrow I want you to take that R2 unit to Anchorhead and have its memory erased. That'll be the end of it. It belongs to us now.
But what if this Obi-Wan comes looking for him?
He won't. I don't think he exists anymore. He died about the same time as your father.
He knew my father?
I told you to forget it.
Luke genuinely cares about the fate of the droids and getting them to their owner, even if it means they would lose the droids in the process, where Owen wants to hide all the evidence of the past. Once again, Luke lights up, this time at the mention of his father, implying that they haven't told him much about Anakin. This strategy to hide the truth from Luke may have worked up to this point. However, it's only caused Luke to gain more and more of a curiosity, as every time he gets close to the truth, his uncle shuts him down. This creates a resentment for his uncle, as he was never fully honest with him, where Luke was always willing to do so for him. This interaction also has Owen get so wound up because he represents stability and monotony, and Obi-Wan and the droids threaten this as they represent change and variety, coming from the extraordinary world. Of course, Luke is tired of the ordinary world's ways and seeks for change, and for the first time in his life, these droids provide him with any semblance of it. So, Owen's reaction only frustrates Luke more as he tries to spread his wings into the outside world, but Owen wants to keep him caged up, which is a fitting metaphor as Luke is also a skilled pilot that wants to enroll in the academy. Even though he hates the Empire, it shows that he's just that desperate for change.
And if these new droids do work out, I want to transmit my application to the Academy this year.
You mean the next semester before the harvest?
Sure, there's more than enough droids.
Harvest is when I need you the most. It's only one season more. This year we'll make enough on the harvest that I'll be able to hire some more hands, and then you can go to the academy next year. You must understand I need you here, Luke.
But it's a whole nother year.
Look, it's only one more season.
Yeah, that's what she said when Biggs and Tank left.
Where are you going?
Looks like I'm going nowhere. I have to go finish cleaning those droids.
Unfortunately, Luke is stuck on the desert planet, living the life that his uncle has chosen for him, not too dissimilar to his father, growing up on the same planet with limited choices of where he could go or what he could do with his life.
Oh, and he can't stay here forever. Most of his friends have gone. It means so much to him.
I'll make it up to him next year. I promise.
Luke's just not a farmer, Owen. He has too much of his father in him.
That's what I'm afraid of.
Like Anakin, Luke's strengths are his weaknesses, as the two were altruistic people with dreams and aspirations filled with adventure and excitement, which could lead them to greatness. But at times, it was at the cost of impulsiveness, similar to how Yoda would describe it in Empire.
All his life as he looked away to the future, to the horizon, never his mind on where he was, what he was doing. Adventure, excitement. A Jedi craves not these things. You are reckless.
But just because he starts out as Anakin did, does not guarantee Luke will end up like him. Owen fears that this is the case, and ironically, makes the same mistake that Obi-Wan once did with his former apprentice, by micromanaging his actions and overprotecting him from the world around him. But no matter how much Owen tries to push his ideals onto Luke, he can't change who he is, as the young farmer still dreams of something greater, this being captivated beautifully by the binary sunset. No words are spoken in this scene, but it tells us exactly how Luke feels. We see him approach the twin sons, kicking dirt in clear frustration of the life he leads. Luke wants nothing more than to leave this rock and start a new life. The two sons are like the two paths that he may take, one that has him stay where he is, and the other, which allows him to pursue his dreams and find a life of greater purpose. The sunset itself is a visual representation of the life he once knew setting, and the journey ending with it. But a new day will dawn, so a new journey and the adventure he seeks is right around the corner. The suns are also literal stars, so with Luke looking to the stars, it's as if he's looking for guidance and a sign of hope. It's indicative of his wonder and fascination with the greater world around him, emphasizing the idea of being a wide-eyed youth, always looking to the future and all its possibilities. It's an image that's as synonymous with Luke as a character because it, like he, embodies the very idea of hope, and would be put to the test, as his life would never be the same from that moment on.
What are you doing hiding back there?
It wasn't my fault, sir. Please don't deactivate me. I told him not to go, but he's faulty, malfunctioning. Kept babbling on about his mission.
Oh no.
Luke realizes that R2 took advantage of the situation and made a run for it. A lesson again for Luke not to underestimate others.
How could I be so stupid? He's nowhere in sight. Blasted.
Pardon me, sir, but couldn't we go after him?
It's too dangerous with all the sand people around. We'll have to wait until morning.
Shutting the power down.
All right, I'll be there in a few minutes.
Boy, am I gonna get it.
You know, that little droid is going to cause me a lot of trouble.
Oh, he excels at that, sir.
Little does Luke know how much trouble he would find himself in and the adventure he's about to embark on, all because of this brave little droid. And so, Luke and 3PO pursue R2 the following day, fortunately finding him in one piece.
Hey, whoa, just where do you think you're going?
Master Luke is your rightful owner now. We'll have no more of this Obi-Wan Kenobi gibberish. And don't talk to me of your mission either. You're fortunate he doesn't blast you into a million pieces right here.
No, it's all right, but I think we better go.
And fortunately for R2's sake, the merciful Luke is in charge rather than the unforgiving 3PO, as Luke is willing to forgive and forget, understanding that getting angry won't solve anything, so he shifts his focus on the looming threat.
Sand people, or worse. Come on, let's go have a look. Come on!
When danger comes, Luke chooses fight over flight, a result of his youth, harkening back to the idea of always searching for adventure, which can lead to reckless decision-making.
They're sand people, all right. I can see one of them now.
Luke, of course, gets himself into a bit of trouble for biting off more than he could chew, getting knocked unconscious. Luke tries to play the role of the hero too soon, while Obi-Wan plays the role of a Jedi, as he only comes in to save the day when necessary, not particularly looking for a fight as Luke did, a difference of wisdom that only comes with age and experience.
Rest easy, son. You've had a busy day. You're fortunate to be all in one piece.
And it's here that Luke enters the stage of meeting the mentor, where the hero encounters a mentor that can give him advice, wisdom, information, or items that ready them for the journey ahead.
Ben? Ben Kenobi? Boy, am I glad to see you.
The Junlan wastes are not to be traveled lightly.
And where this mentor was once pinned as just a crazy old wizard, truly he would be the wise sage to guide Luke on his journey, acting as the angel on his shoulders, being there to protect Luke when trouble comes his way.
He claims to be the property of an Obi-Wan Kenobi. Is he a relative of yours? Do you know who he's talking about?
Obi-Wan Kenobi. Now that's a name I've not heard in a long time. A long time.
I think my uncle knows him. He said he was dead.
Oh, he's not dead. Not yet.
You know him?
Well, of course I know him. He's me. I haven't gone by the name of Obi-Wan since before you were born.
Luke begins to see Obi-Wan as more than just an old hermit, as the man Obi-Wan once was returns to him, as the name almost gives him life, as he's reunited with it like an old friend. Luke also begins to see the trend of lies that his uncle told him, compared to the truth with Obi-Wan. This would build conflict in Luke as he would begin to question whether he should be living life as his uncle believes, or as Obi-Wan does. Once they arrive at Obi-Wan's home, Obi-Wan would truly embrace the role of the mentor, as he would lay the foundation of handing Luke the tools he would need to succeed. So he first arms him with information, in the form of the truth about his father.
No, my father didn't fight in the wars. He was a navigator on a spice freighter.
That's what your uncle told you. He didn't hold with your father's ideals, thought he should have stayed here and not gotten involved.
Just like the boring life of a farmer that Luke lives, the story he's told about his father matches that, where Obi-Wan now presents Luke with a more exciting story of Anakin as a legendary hero of the Clone Wars. This surely interests Luke, as Obi-Wan is the clear key to living a life such as this one filled with adventure and purpose. This new information gives Luke a new perspective, as he has aspirations to be like his father, even more now. Also, the ideals of Ben and Owen clash again, as not getting involved in doing the right thing don't always align with each other. These two figures would be the representatives of the paths that Luke could choose, and Obi-Wan's path aligns more with Luke's ideals, making him an ideal mentor.
You fought in the Clone Wars?
Yes. I was once a Jedi Knight, the same as your father.
Again, Luke lights up when he hears of adventure, in this case, in Obi-Wan's involvement of the Clone Wars. This would be something that Yoda would call out an empire, as he would say,
"Wars not make one great."
Also, there's an added layer of interest, as Obi-Wan is the closest thing Luke has to knowing his father, as he's the only one willing to tell him anything about him.
I wish I'd known him.
He was the best star pilot in the galaxy, and a cunning warrior. I understand you've become quite a good pilot yourself. And he was a good friend.
The apple doesn't fall far from the tree, as the similarities between father and son are stacking up. Through Obi-Wan, Luke can for the first time get a glimpse of his father's true image. While Obi-Wan may be leaving out some details, he does show reverence to the man that he once was, as Anakin was a person to strive to be like once upon a time. And this only inspires Luke even further, as the description of his father is really the type of person that he wants to be. One that goes off on adventures and has a greater purpose. Someone that does the right thing and has a positive impact on others. In other words, a hero. And every hero must have an item, or in this case a weapon given by the mentor, to defend themselves on their journey ahead.
Your father wanted you to have this when you were old enough, but your uncle wouldn't allow it. He feared you might follow old Obi-Wan on some damn fool idealistic crusade like your father did.
Before Obi-Wan even explains what it is, Luke is curious to learn more about it, as it's one of the only things left of his father. So Obi-Wan passing this weapon down to him is like receiving a family heirloom. This also solidifies Obi-Wan as a father figure of sorts, as he's the one to pass it down. And having been considered Anakin's quasi-brother, Luke is open to treating him as such, as Obi-Wan treats Luke with more sincerity than Owen does in regard to learning about his family. Again, Owen represents the ordinary world, and Obi-Wan and Anakin, the extraordinary. And extraordinary this weapon he would receive truly is.
What is it?
Your father's lightsaber. This is the weapon of a Jedi Knight. Not as clumsy or random as a blaster. An elegant weapon for a more civilized age.
Obi-Wan's description of the lightsaber fills Luke with wonder as he gives the weapon life through his description, making the Jedi truly feel like knights of the medieval times. This passing of the weapon and almost lineage or worthiness attached to it is reminiscent of fantasy tales of the era, such as King Arthur and the weapon of Excalibur. And like these tales, the Jedi were trained in the art of swordplay and abided by a code of chivalry or honor to defend the kingdom and its people for the greater good.
For over 1,000 generations, the Jedi Knights were the guardians of peace and justice in the Old Republic. Before the Dark Times. Before the Empire.
Because there are no other Jedi that the audience is aware of, Obi-Wan is our representative of what a Jedi is and should be. So he's our shining example of what Luke must aspire to be in order to become a Jedi, if not better. Also, the term of Jedi Knight has been thrown out but not described, with this being the first time that we're given a description worthy enough to understand what it means to be a Jedi. For Luke, the Jedi almost seem like mythological legendary heroes of old, as he was born in the Empire, so it's all he knows, where Obi-Wan provides him with a glimpse into the past, which further idolizes Luke's image of his father.
How did my father die?
A young Jedi named Darth Vader, who was a pupil of mine until he turned to evil, helped the Empire hunt down and destroy the Jedi Knights. He betrayed and murdered your father. Now the Jedi are all but extinct. Vader was seduced by the dark side of the Force.
Obi-Wan gifts Luke with wisdom, something that can only be gained through experience and typically failure, which goes beyond just acquiring knowledge, as he introduces the idea that the Jedi are not perfect. They're people, just like anyone else, with flaws, wants, and desires. this greatly juxtaposing the storybook description of being the guardians of peace and justice. So for Luke, this serves as a warning of the temptation that can come with power, and how it corrupted the good man that was once Obi-Wan's apprentice. This in some sense even makes Anakin out to be a martyr, and creates further sympathy for him and initiates contempt for Vader, not knowing that they're one and the same.
The Force?
And the Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us and penetrates us. It binds the galaxy together.
Even greater than the lightsaber itself, Obi-Wan arms Luke with the idea of the Force, as it's truly the Jedi's greatest weapon, and what Luke would need on his journey to becoming a hero. It's also fitting that the Force is something that's inside of all living things, as it's used as a story tool for Luke's growth and inner development. As he learns more about the Force, he will learn more about himself, and vice versa. So the more skilled he becomes, the more confident he will become in his actions, and further improve himself as a person.
I have placed information vital to the survival of the rebellion into the memory systems of this R2 unit. My father will know how to retrieve it. You must see this droid safely delivered to him on Alderaan. This is our most desperate hour. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope.
The stage is set as the mission Luke has dreamed of presents itself, where the princess needs help from the wizard and his knight apprentice. The call to adventure is then presented in full to Luke, but as the hero's journey suggests, the hero will make a choice and undergo the stage known as the refusal to the call, where the hero initially refuses the adventure because of hesitation, fears, insecurity, or any other number of reasons.
You must learn the ways of the Force if you're to come with me to Alderaan.
Alderaan? I'm not going to Alderaan. I've got to get home. It's late. I'm in port as it is.
I need your help, Luke. She needs your help. I'm getting too old for this sort of thing.
While Luke truly wants to help, he can't bring himself to do it, as it would mean leaving behind all of his responsibilities and his family. While he's dreamed of a moment like this, he hesitates due to fear of the unknown. Sometimes the safest choice to make is to stick with the status quo and not allow change to happen.
I can't get involved. I've got work to do. It's not that I like the Empire, I hate it, but there's nothing I can do about it right now. It's all such a long way from here.
That's your uncle talking.
Luke wants to go, but leans on his uncle as an excuse so much that he begins to even talk like he does. Luke uses the external circumstance rather than his own inner desire and conscience to make this choice. His refusal can also be seen as a moment of the human heart in conflict with itself, as he must choose between honoring his loyalty to his family or a sense of duty to do the right thing. His fear of the unknown shows here as well, as saying it's a long way from here is a reminder that he really hasn't experienced anything outside of Tatooine, so just leaving the atmosphere would be a milestone in itself.
Learn about the Force, Luke.
Look, I can take you as far as Anchorhead. You can get a transport there to Mos Eisley or wherever you're going.
You must do what you feel is right, of course.
While Luke refuses the call, Obi-Wan leaves him with food for thought, that in the end, the decision is his. Only Luke can choose his destiny, and as a hero who seeks out adventure and purpose, these words would stay with him, as doing the right thing is all he really wants. This idea that Obi-Wan instills in Luke would prove to be a defining character trait for him. It's this lesson of standing up for what you believe in that would empower Luke throughout the trilogy, something that all came from his first mentor. The idea of doing the right thing would incite Luke to question his decision, and bringing him into the next stage, crossing the threshold, where the hero leaves their ordinary world for the first time and crosses the threshold into adventure. Unfortunately though, there would also be a physical force that would bring Luke to this moment.
It looks like the Sand People did this all right. Look, there's gaffy sticks, bantha tracks. It's just, I've never heard of them hitting anything this big before.
They didn't, but we are meant to think they did. These tracks are side by side. Sand People always ride single file to hide their numbers.
Luke's lack of experience has him mistakenly assume that the Sand People were responsible for the attack. Comparatively, Obi-Wan's wisdom allows him to see the reality of the situation, having dealt with both Imperial and clone troops before.
These are the same Jawas that sold us R2 and 3PO.
And these blast points, too accurate for Sand People. Only Imperial stormtroopers are so precise.
Luke is a bit naive, but Obi-Wan, I don't know if he's gonna buy that. All jokes aside, Luke and Obi-Wan put their minds together to come to the realization that the Empire is on their tail. Not only will this force Luke to make a decision sooner than expected, but for what the Empire will do to his family, it makes the situation more personal and real now, as now, the Empire is after him.
But why would Imperial troops want to slaughter Jawas? If they traced the robots here, they may have learned who they sold them to, and that would lead them back home.
Oh, wait, Luke! It's too dangerous!
Luke realizes what happened and immediately rushes back home to try and warn his aunt and uncle. Unfortunately, it's too little too late, as Luke finds that his family members were murdered by the Empire, all because of his association to the droids. This being an example of the injustice that the Empire has been delivering to people, and his family were just another victim of the problem. The sight is traumatizing to witness, but Luke forces himself to look on, to never forget what occurred that day. This would be the turning point in Luke's journey and a pivotal moment in his arc, as he would make the active choice to move on from being the farm boy to the destined hero and Jedi of the rebellion.
There's nothing you could have done, Luke, had you been there. You'd have been killed too, and the droids would now be in the hands of the Empire.
I want to come with you to Alderaan. There's nothing for me here now. I want to learn the ways of the Force and become a Jedi like my father.
In this moment, Luke solidifies the choice to embark on his journey. The death of his aunt and uncle incited it, as he now has nothing tying him back to Tatooine and the life of a farmer. After what happened to him, he wants nothing more than to do the right thing and follow in his father's footsteps. And his path to becoming a Jedi would allow him to live with greater purpose and lead an adventure of his own. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. I had a ton of fun making this video, so if you enjoyed it too, then I highly suggest liking the video, and if you want to see more like it, then definitely hit subscribe. And if you want to be notified when part 2 comes out, then hit the bell for notifications, or consider checking out my Patreon, where I'll be uploading videos there significantly sooner than on YouTube. So part 2 should be available there as I speak, and the same will apply to the next parts when they come out. And on that note, I want to give a shout out to my patrons. Your support means everything to me. And finally, let me know in the comments which Star Wars character is the greatest hero and why. And who knows, they might be in the next one. Until next time, I'll be at the Tashi station picking up some power converters.